So now we're going to be talking about detectors, smoke detectors, or just point detectors. Um, we'll be looking at what are detectors, the various types of detectors, how to locate and cite detectors, and we will look at detection zones. So detectors are just devices that automatically sense of fire or smoke and causes the fire alarm panel to signal and send out an alarm situation. So those are basically that's basically what a detector is. It senses a fire event, which can be maybe caused by smoke or the actual flame itself, or maybe by carbon monoxide, and then it detects that in the atmosphere and then sends a signal to the fire alarm panel to trigger an alarm. Now, there are various types of detectors. Basically, there are four main types, which are the smoke detectors, the heat detector, the flame detector, and the video smoke detector. Under the heat detector, the heat detectors are used um, the the smoke detection can will generate like a false alarm in the environment. So where the smoke alarm where the environment will cause a false alarm due to smoke, um, then heat detection is used. And there are two types of heat detectors. We have the rate of rise detectors and the fixed temperature. The fixed temperature is set to a threshold, a degree threshold. And once the temperature in the room gets to that threshold, then the alarm event is raised. That's what the fixed temperature um, heat detector does. For a rate of rise, what it does it monitors the heat in the room, and if the heat increases at a fast rate, at a very high rate, then the alarm is triggered. Um, so those are the two types of heat detectors. For the smoke detectors, we have a couple of them. We have the ionization uh, smoke detection. We have the optical smoke detection. We have the carbon monoxide detection. We have the beam detection. We have the aspirating system. We have the laser point detection, and we have the multi sensors. So those are the types of smoke detection that we have. And then we have the flame detection. This one, the flame detection actually detects the fire that is burning, and there's environments where you need to consider using all this. We shall discuss this later. And then we have the video smoke detection. This one uses a video to monitor um, an installation or a place or an environment, and when the video sees a smoke, then it raises the alarm. So these are the four basic types of detectors that you use in a building. And I'll go over it again. We have the heat detection. We have two types heat detectors. We have the rate of rise and the fixed temperature. And then the second one is the smoke detection. Under the smoke detection, we have the ionization smoke detection. We have the optical smoke detection. We have the carbon monoxide beam detection. Um, the aspirating system and the laser point detection, and also we have the multi-sensor. Multi-sensors as it's a combined heat and smoke detection in one. That's what the multi-sensor detection is. And then we have the video smoke detection. What we've decided to do is we will just talk about it briefly here, but there's going to be another module that is dedicated to talking about the each detector in more detail. So there'll be another module that is dedicated to talking about. I don't want this audio or video to be too long. So there'll be another module that's going to talk about each of these in more detail. Okay. Next is citing detectors. When you're citing detectors, what you need to consider is number one, the environment, because we need to choose the right detector for the right place, installed in the right way. Because if you don't do that, then the installation may be too sensitive, and then there'll be false alarm, or the installation will not be sensitive, and therefore the building will not be protected. So the right detector must be chosen for the right place, for the right environment, and it must be installed in the right way. So what you need to consider when you are installing or locating detectors or siting detector is the environment where the detector is going to be installed. And within that environment, what you have to consider is the height of the environment, the activity in that environment. You need to also consider the types of hazards that are in that environment. Is it dust? Is it water? Is it chemicals? What are the types of hazard you have? Is there lots of paper? Is there lots of combustible material in the environment? All this needs to be considered before you now choose the right detector. And the right detector, like you said above, is either a smoke, which there are two types, uh, and it can either be heat, it can either be video or laser. Okay, so uh, what's the environment? The next thing you've got to consider when you are locating is the category of the system. This category will determine the rooms, which rooms in a building will be covered by the detector. So you can have either a protection category P or a category L, which is life. And under the property protection, I mean, you have the P1 and P2. Under the life protection, you have L1, L2, L3, L4, L5. Um, the L5 is based on risk assessment. The L4 is escape routes only. The L3 is escape routes and room leading into escape routes. The L3 is rooms, uh, escape routes, rooms leading into escape routes, plus high risk area. And then the L1 is every room in the building. So the coverage also, the the category also, you need to know that. So first of all, you need to know what environment, what is the category. The next thing you've got to know is once you know that okay, this room is going to be covered by a detector, you need to now make sure that the number of detector placed in that room covers the whole room. You understand? Heat detection normally covers 5.3 radius, and smoke detector covers 7.5 radius. So you must make sure you provide the correct number of devices within the room to make sure that room is covered completely. You understand? So the third thing you've got to consider is sighting the detector on a ceiling. You understand? So when you are sighting the detector on the ceiling, you must consider the closeness of that detector, maybe to uh, downstand beams, to to shelves on the closeness to the wall, closeness to luminaires, closeness to other services on the ceiling. So you need to make sure that you sight it in a way that all these features on the ceiling don't hinder the correct performance of the device. Next is also carrying out a risk assessment. Risk assessment, you need to carry out a risk assessment. Sometimes when you are designing and you are working on typical buildings like workplace, education, and things like that, by experience, you know which rooms require a detector. For instance, a room where there's a distribution board, kitchen, that detectors are required in there. A room where there is maybe your boiler room, your plant room, that there are detectors in there. But risk assessment needs to be carried out to make sure that unless you are using an L1 system, you understand? Unless you are using an L1 system, which you are covering the all of the building. If you are using an L2 system or any other system, you need to make sure that you carry out a risk assessment. So these are the things you need to consider when you are locating a fire alarm device. Number one, you've got to consider the environment, and under the environment, you need to consider the height, activity within the room, the hazards within the room. Number two, you've got to consider the category of the system. Number three, you've got to consider the coverage of the detector within a room. Make sure it covers the entire room. And number three, you need to consider other features on the ceiling. You need to make sure that you consider other features on the ceiling, such as a fan coil unit, where there's a downstar beam, where there's a luminaire. You need to consider all these things to make sure that the performance of the detector is not hindered. So these are all the topics that we'll be talking about. We've talked about what a detector is. We've talked about the types of detector, and we've talked about how to locate or site a detector in a building.